a hitman came in with face covered, very professional, stalked up to them, shot one of them dead. It's a scan. Basically, people tell me this is a big ticking time bomb and it's about to come out. There's many more just like CWM, and they're all doing the same thing.
And then one of the German detectives comes out with a crate of beer that he hands to everyone, and they are clearly looking like they're celebrating something.
The rest is Spain.
Don't forget to subscribe to The Rest is Spain on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
Welcome to the Olive Press The Rest is Spain podcast, brought to you by Stay Short Expat, where we discuss the news that matters to expats in Spain. I'm here with Jon Clarke, editor of Olive Press, and Walt Finch, digital editor. And today we're going to talk about all the issues that are in the paper this week. So, Jon.
Good afternoon. Are we going to start with your little weekend trip to Ibiza?
Oh, well, you know, Jon, what happens in Ibiza stays in Ibiza, so I couldn't possibly comment there. But yeah, had a great time in Ibiza, thank you.
But is it as buzzy now as it's always been? Is the shine wearing off in Ibiza? Is there a chance that Marbella or other places, you know, Mallorca or Ayia Napa could take over?
Well, for me, it was very shiny and very exciting because I'd never been to Ibiza before. So, you know, I can't really comment whether it's lost its shine. But for me, yeah, it was buzzing, lots of people there, and it was only the end of May. So
it's a beautiful island, right? You got good weather.
Yeah, gorgeous weather. It's a beautiful island, really friendly people. It was great, and there was absolutely no anti-tourism.
That's good. I mean, one of the things about Ibiza, it's so different to Mallorca and so different to the mainland. It's just, and I always go and just blown away by how stunning the beaches are. And although the food's not as good as some other places, it's as an island, you can't beat it. The landscape is really,
Absolutely.
really nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. And you know, it's so peaceful and tranquil. Which is a long way away from this headline news, which isn't very peaceful. So, Walt, tell me about what's going on in the Costa del Crime.
The Costa bloodbath. This so for anyone who's not been keeping up with the news, this took place a week and a half ago, Saturday night on the night of the Champions League final. So everyone was out watching the football, and there was a bar in Fuengirola called Monaghan's Irish Bar on the beachfront. Typical kind of touristy bar. People watching the football. I think it's quite a chill place. It's not in the crazy part of Fuengirola. And these two guys were sitting there, and a hitman came in with face covered, very professional, stalked up to them, shot one of them dead, and then there's CCTV footage that was released on the Spanish news. They put it on the Spanish television without any kind of blurring, which caused quite a lot of shock in the UK. And you see the second man running through the kind of the inside part of the bar, and the hitman following him, and then you see him staggering, and he's got a white T-shirt on. And you see the blood stains spreading. It's really grim and brutal. And then it didn't take long for the news to come out that these weren't just any two guys. And obviously, in Costa del Sol, if two guys get shot dead in a bar, it's always going to be mafia related. And what we learned very quickly is that one of them was Ross Monaghan, who's I think the owner of the Monaghan's bar, so not a coincidence there. And the other one was Eddie Lyons Jr., who's heavily connected with the Lyons crime family from Glasgow. And these are both Scottish gangsters who've been holed up in the Costa del Sol for quite a while now, in theory laying low, but obviously not that low because someone wanted to kill them and someone did kill them very, very professionally. And it's a fascinating story because anyone living in the Costa del Sol will know there's shootings quite often. It's not the first shooting, but it's the first time, especially from a journalist perspective, that we've had the names of the victims, and you know the organisations they're associated with, and it's a wealth of information that we haven't had. We've had shootings, you know, every 2 or 3 weeks, to be honest.
Yeah, it was immediate. We got the names almost immediately, right?
And I think what happened is either the police or I think more likely the figures in Glasgow leaked the information to the press in Glasgow, the Glasgow Sun or the Glasgow Record, and they wanted to get it out there. And then suddenly, from having many years of quite a dry spell in terms of reporting on crime in the Costa del Sol, although it's always been there, it's never died down. We just didn't have the names or the faces or the storylines for it. Not since the Kinahans, you know, kind of 10 years ago. Now suddenly it's back, you know. It never really went away, but now it's back.
Who are the Lyons family?
So you've got the Lyons and the Daniels families, and they traffic in coke, and they associate all these cocaine trafficking gangs around Europe. They all work with each other, so there's no such thing as like an isolated one. They all both have connections with the Kinahans. Kinahans being the most kind of household name, and they would work with mafias from Holland, from Italy. They all Albanians, and then the Balkan is also a big source of these kinds of criminal groups. And it's just these are guys from Glasgow, and so the assumption was that this was a Glasgow crime war brought to the streets of Fuengirola. This is the first sort of reporting.
So should we be scared now, wandering the streets of the Costa del Sol?
I think if you're not trafficking drugs, or even if you are trafficking drugs but you're not owing debts, or you're not getting yourself into trouble, I think you're fine.
So you think that the chance of being caught in crossfire is pretty small, given I suppose this guy they were so clearly targeted, right? I mean the shooter was, to get two guys, shoot them both dead in one go, that's remarkable.
Yeah, so one thing they're saying, many people are assuming that this killer was brought in from Glasgow and is part of a Glasgow organised crime hit. But now the police in Scotland have said, we actually don't see any evidence, the special branch, to support that theory. And I think the current thinking among sort of informed sources is that he's the killer who was kind of military in skill and precision, was based here, and there's many guns for hire. Could be South American, could be Balkans. You're not short of hired killers if you want them.
Wasn't there a huge contract on his head?
Yeah, we did hear this. We don't know this ourselves, but the rumor is that Monaghan was the target, and Leon's, although having his name, the same name as the Leon's crime family, probably being closer into it, at least by blood, wasn't the target. They were after Monaghan, who owed there's a contract out on him for 250k.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I don't know. He must have owed someone a hell of a lot of money for that to be worthwhile. And but also he was just sitting in a pub. You'd think if you're a wanted mafia kind of crook, you wouldn't sit in a pub watching, especially your own pub, watching a match where everyone knows that this match is on, one of the biggest matches of the year. Yeah. So it's very slack.
Do you think they did it on purpose on that day to get maximum eyeballs on it, and
that's a good question.
In the daylight?
That's a really good point.
I would think the last thing they want is the publicity, which is why it's strange that the names have come out, because the Kinahans clearly they flew too close to the sun. They were too well known. There was a whole kind of cottage industry. Now you got podcasts, you got books, you got anything you want about the Kinahans. And the one lesson from being a big organized crime figure that I think they all took from that is keep a low profile. So this isn't good for them. Not good for anyone, I don't think.
I think it sounds like a storyline from the BBC drama This City Is Ours, which I understand they're about to make a second series. And that's based on a Liverpool crime gang. And it's also based in Marbella. So the first few episodes, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but the first few episodes are very much based in Marbella, and you see the famous mountain in the backdrop. And, of course, they buy their drugs across the water in Morocco.
Yeah.
And, of course, a deal goes wrong and a shipment doesn't arrive in the docks in Liverpool, a big shipment. I think it's probably more than 250 grand, but I think it's quite a few million that didn't arrive. Next thing, the whole thing's kicked off, and it's so well made that anyone who's interested in this should watch it.
Is it based on a true story?
It's based loosely on a true story, and if you think of the quote, "This city is ours," who else came out with that famous line?
So funny you asked that one, John, because the other crime story in the news at the minute, which is a trial about the Swedish mafia. So it's already gone to trial. That means it's happened, many years ago, because the wheels of justice are very slow in Spain. But the figurehead on trial is a well-known figure in the Costa del Sol, because he's the stepson of the mayor of Marbella, Ángeles Muñoz. So it's a very murky.
And she's not linked to it anyway, though, is she? Let's be honest. She's. I think was it her ex-husband who's now dead, right? Or actual husband who's dead.
Her husband who passed is the father of the guy on trial, so her stepson, not her biological son. But he was also imputed, what's the word? Indicted. He was indicted.
Charged.
On the same sort of drug trafficking charges as the son. Whether the mayor is involved, we would probably say she's not, wouldn't we?
I think she's... It's difficult to say. I've known her for a long time. I think probably on balance, no, she's not involved. Could she be the first mayor in the last 6 mayors who've all ended up in prison in Marbella? And I think it's the same in Estepona, right?
Yeah.
I got a sense that she's okay, and she's gonna ride this one out.
She'll ride it out for sure, because she's been in power since 2011, for 14 years. She always gets voted in no matter what happens.
But it's very interesting, though, that there's so much of this crime going on, and you know people who know people who know people. Is it as bad as the press are making it out to be, like the tabloid press? Or do you think they've taken this story and just blown it up? What's your view?
That's a question. If you speak to people around the Costa del Sol, you both live here, everyone has an experience, or everyone kind of knows it's there, but most people turn a blind eye to it or don't sort of interact with it. So it's like carbon monoxide. You don't really detect it. You don't know it's there, but sometimes it's there.
I mean, geographically, you can't. We're so obviously close to Africa, aren't we? And Algeciras port and La Linea, where I believe you live, and you can't. So obviously, we know that there's a lot of money coming down to the Costa del Sol from the purchase of drugs, and that's never going to go away. I mean, Costa Blanca isn't as bad, and that's a fact. It just isn't. And
it's one of those things though you can never know for certain. It's just speculation and guesswork. But yeah, like Jon says, we all know, especially if you're a journalist working in the field, there's a lot of drugs, there's a lot of dirty money in the economy, and that money gets in everywhere. It gets into real estate, and then it gets invested elsewhere. So it all mingles together, and it drives a lot of the economy along the coast.
Money laundering is huge here, isn't it? I mean, how many bars set out, how many clubs, how many car washing places. It's so fascinating, isn't it? How many places get burnt down, for example.
That's a very good one, yeah. And the police never get to the bottom of it. You never hear anything about it. It's just, there's another fire.
Yeah, well, I mean, the one near here at Sisu Hotel, wasn't there a body allegedly found at the bottom, right, when it burnt down?
Which one was this?
There was a Belgian guy. There was a fire, and you probably drive past it every day and realise, but there's a hotel called Sisu that's burnt down about...
It's a few years ago, wasn't it? Yeah, a few years ago.
And, be careful what we say about it.
It's a murky world.
Yeah. But going back to the Lions guy, was that not where the famous monk was living? In Fuengirola?
So yeah, he's got a home. He actually has a villa in Fuengirola, and he was spotted there, I think, last year. And so it was Gerard Hutch. Jerry Hutch.
Jerry the Monk Hutch, yeah.
Jerry the Monk Hutch. So he was the arch sort of nemesis rival of the Kinahans back in the day. They had this Kinahan-Hutch feud, in 2013 to 2018 or something?
About how long? 7-8 years, more or less, no?
Yeah, many deaths in Spain and Ireland and I guess other places.
He lost his family. He lost like 6 or 7 of his own family members.
Can you tell us
Jerry
about
the
that?
Hutch. I can tell you that I think his brother was killed as a taxi driver, totally innocent.
Yeah, that rings a
bell. He lost a son. He lost, incredibly large amount of people connected to him who were killed over the years. And when he turned up living in Fuengirola, and he had a long beard and he wore a baseball cap, no one could quite believe it.
Yeah.
And, he then got extradited back to Ireland. And I believe he's got off the charges.
Yeah, his trial, I think, was last year. It was within recent memory. He got off maybe a year, last spring. And he's called Jerry the Monk Hutch because he abstains, doesn't touch alcohol and doesn't touch drugs, I guess. Doesn't take them, at least. And
allegedly.
And he's last thing I heard, he was trying to open property in Lanzarote, which is obviously very stressed because of over tourism, they say. And the story is that he was using his ill-gotten gains to open affordable housing for workers and the ordinary fellas in Lanzarote.
So he's kind of giving back in some ways, would you say?
I think he's seen as a Robin Hood figure among some. Obviously, many would say no, he's a gangster. And then last thing, also, he's trying to stand for election in Dublin as a local councillor.
In Dale, I think he was standing for an actual MP, wasn't he? I think he only lost by, a few hundred votes.
He was a councillor, and he lost. So it wasn't a huge sort of position in politics, but it's the first step. Once you let them in, so it's a good thing for Ireland that he didn't get in.
Agreed. Yeah, totally.
Interesting. Okay.
Now, we're going to take a quick break from talking about the news to hear from our sponsor.
Sorry, no hablo español. Looking for travel insurance you can understand? StaySure have been the experts in travel insurance for over 50s with pre-existing medical conditions for over 20 years. Get a quote today at staysure.com or call us free on +34 900 861 023 for a policy in plain English.
StaySure Expat is a tied agent of Ergo Seguros de Viaje.
That's the Costa del Sol, or should we really call it the Costa del Crime? Because another story that still interests me, well, is one that we talked about a couple of weeks ago on the podcast about the pension scams. And I believe you've got a bit more to that story. Tell us about that.
So we talked about this, didn't we? It was the story of Continental Wealth Management, and this was a big kind of pension fraud that took place based in the Costa Blanca, and it took in hundreds of expat retirees in Spain, and a lot of them, but not all of them, lost their pensions, or a huge chunk of their pensions, because this company, CWM, were investing in risky, high risk
Penny shares
or structured notes is what they say, not appropriate for pensions, and it was basically so that these people running the company, executives, could take these fat commissions. And me and Jon did some very good investigation in this. We got in touch with the chief mastermind. He had his say. We published the story. We're very happy with it. But I mean, we gave him his side of the story, his chance to.
He's never spoken before, and we're talking like 7 or 8 years of reporting on him and his ex-wife Jodie, and
it's a complete exclusive.
You did a great job tracking him down, and it was great to see it in the paper this week. I think you laid down the fact that he obviously didn't do anything wrong, did he?
Well, yeah. So he's claiming he didn't do anything wrong, and I mean we were fair to him, we gave him his chance. But the one thing he has said is
it wasn't me, Gov.
Yeah.
Is that a quote, or is that...
No. We ad-libbed that one a little bit. But the one thing he said, it wasn't me, it was the pension provider. So this can become a very dry topic, but essentially what he's saying is CWM is just one of, dozens, hundreds of offshore investment companies. There's many more just like CWM, and they're all doing the same thing, as well as the insurance companies that actually invest the money. So these are advisory firms. This is all according to Darren Kirby, who's the so-called mastermind. He said, we never touched the money. And other people said they didn't touch it, but they made the
held in accounts in Malta or somewhere, is it?
So yeah, it all goes through Malta, and there's the pension company in Malta, and he's basically blaming them. And it is interesting because they did go to court. There was a tribunal in Malta, and they weren't found, because it wasn't a criminal court, but the arbiter, the financial arbiter in Malta said, look, you guys, how can I say this? You effed up as well. But I think the Continental Wealth Management, they were just raking it in and living large off people's pensions. But it's essentially what I'm getting from my news gathering is that this is, a conspiracy is a strong word, but this is something, a practice that goes on over hundreds of billions of dollars or euros or pounds worth of pension investments now throughout the offshore world. It wouldn't be in the UK, it wouldn't necessarily be in Spain, it's offshore.
It's not regulated, is it?
Yeah, unregulated pensions. And there's a number of very well-known companies, which we won't mention because we don't want to get our asses sued, who are implicated in this. And quite a lot of very powerful figures and very wealthy people who we're going to continue digging into it. But these guys, and there's also, I do understand there's many, or at least a number of certain trials taking place in the Isle of Man, which is another offshore jurisdiction. And there's one verdict coming out, I think, tomorrow or Tuesday this week coming. It's called the Signature Trial. And this is relating to these giant pension companies, investors, that take care of the life savings, the retirement savings of thousands, or tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of British people and other nationalities, I would imagine. They lose their money, or they take a big haircut on their pensions, because these investors, these wealthy kind of pension operators, they are deliberately choosing investment vehicles, they say, that are not in the interest of their clients but pay out the biggest commissions. And it's a scam. Basically, people are telling me this is a big ticking time bomb and it's about to come out.
I mean, he says here, I would take a lie detector test anywhere in the world to prove this wasn't fraud. But when we first spoke to him, this is, of course, the fuller interview, but when we first spoke to him, he said 25 to 35 million euros was taken from, I believe, 1,000, or was it 998 victims? And that money has just vanished, hasn't it? It's gone.
What he says, so it's not that the the pension pots have been completely just robbed and put in someone's pocket. But they're put in investments that then collapse. So it's like if you buy Bitcoin, then Bitcoin goes down. So the people's pensions were lost, but these guys all profited from 8%, 15% commission.
Scandalous.
I see. Yeah, so they weren't doing due diligence. They weren't using due care with the people's money. They were just getting commission.
Due diligence. So he's saying that no one did, including himself. He did admit that CWM didn't do the due diligence. And I said, well, is that negligent or is it criminal fraud? And he's like, apple, potato, you know.
Okay. And I think we can mention these guys here because we put them in here. We've also got Patrick and Dawn Kirby. We've also got Anthony Downs, Stephen Ward, someone called Dean Stogsdill, Neil Hathaway, and others. These guys, if you ever come across them, and I really hope that our readers don't, but or watchers or viewers, listeners, do. But if you come across them, be very, very careful and be aware that, with your pension, just use reputable, decent companies that are set up, regulated.
That's the critical word. But the thing is, everyone says they are regulated. These guys said we were regulated through a network, like by proxy. So you can easily, the sweet talking charmers, they can
double check.
They can always get you.
Double check everything, right?
But
is it like timeshare? Do you feel like this is a sort of timeshare type scam all over again?
From what I'm hearing, this is big. Hundreds of millions. So hundreds of billions.
Hundreds of billions.
Hundreds of billions.
Well, interestingly, the timeshare thing, Gold. Did you watch Gold on the BBC about...
I know of it. I never watched it.
Yeah, well, that's about to be series 2, and it's all about timeshare. It's all set in Spain. It's all set in Tenerife.
Oh, great.
So that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah. The other last one to touch on this, a couple of podcasts ago we talked about Jodie.
Yes.
So now we know she's not in jail because the whole appeals process is very lengthy, and so that buys the time. And what do we hear about Jodie, Jon?
Well, allegedly, she's not running her bar restaurant at the moment. But again, I can't say that. Well, I shouldn't say that. I just said it. But I have
allegedly.
Gets us
off the hook.
We need to go and check out. Is she still running this place? Has she, in the words of someone, done a runner?
Allegedly, her villa is all shut up, all the blinds down. It doesn't look very... Because I do understand a lawyer told me that when they gave the guilty verdict, they didn't take her passport.
Okay, that's strange.
Put it all together.
Do they know what they're doing?
Spanish justice, I don't know. I think often they just want people to run. Like if you're a foreigner, they don't want you in their jails. They're happy just to...
But exactly because she's posted quite a large bail, though, perhaps.
Once you're guilty, you go to jail. You can't post a bail.
So there's no benefit to the authorities here to let her do a runner.
I think because we could look at many other expat sort of criminal convicts over the years. I've been in the Costa del Sol who disappeared and never went to jail. And there's a certain pattern to it. I don't know. I wouldn't want to say that they let them go deliberately, but it seems to happen.
Wow. Okay. So that is interesting. And I can't do this podcast for this week's news without talking about the big story. Over to you, Jon. You've even written a book about Maddie McCann and what happened. And you went to Portugal, I think it was last week, and you saw what was going on with this hunt for any evidence about Maddeleine McCann. So tell us, is there any hope there? What's going on?
It's a good question, Caroline. I don't know. This could be the 20th time I've been over there, and I've definitely spent 3, 4, 5 months over there, staying on the Algarve and trying to investigate this case. I don't know if listeners know, but I was the first journalist there, first national newspaper journalist there on May the 4th in 2007. And I got an early morning phone call from the Daily Mail foreign desk. It just said, look, can you go to the Algarve? And I was like half asleep. I was asleep. I said, well, why? He said, there's a little girl gone missing. I'm like, really? You want me to go? Just get in the car and go. So I got in the car and drove and arrived around 9:30, 10 o'clock in Portuguese time. It's an hour's difference. There was almost no one there, and suddenly, bit by bit, pieced together that this poor little girl had vanished and literally vanished into thin air. And so I got kind of dragged into this case unwittingly, and I just got kind of sucked in, and it's fascinating in terms of all the characters that have been involved. And it was actually nearly 13 years later, that in 2020, that they finally announced, the German police, that they had a suspect, a guy called Christian Bruckner. And they said, look, this guy was there. They placed him in the resort at the time. He said, he's a really dangerous sex offender. He's a paedophile. He's got convictions. And we know that He was in the resort that night. He had a half-an-hour phone call just before she went missing. He also has a track record along his arm for burglaries and robberies. They know that he's been in and out of apartments, including in the Ocean Club, where Maddeleine and her family were staying. Her family are both doctors. And they said, look, we need a couple of things. Anyone can help us. But do they know him from when he was there? Can they help place who made that phone call to him, that 30-minute phone call, which is very suspicious, right? Also, I can tell you, this is pretty much an exclusive to you guys here, that the phone was deregistered the next day. His phone number was deregistered the next day. Now, why on earth would you have done that if you hadn't got if there was some very serious reason to do it? So, you know, here I am back again, and the police now had a very good tip-off, German police, that he was staying at a couple of farmhouses just outside Pradalluj on the night she went missing. And what's interesting, there was obviously a smoke screen. They put out that they were going to search 21 properties, and they put out this 3 areas they were going to search in, and they were spread out, one in the middle of the village, one west, one east. And so typically the Sun did their sort of map, you know, exactly where it was going to be and all the different properties. They spent 3 days searching in one very small part of one of those areas, probably no more than about 10 hectares. No, 10 acres. There was probably 5 ruins. They knew exactly what they were looking for. Turns out they had an aerial shot showing a van parked outside one of these properties on the very day that she went missing, and a van and a tent inside one of those buildings. And they believe that maybe he was in that van, that was his van, and they believe that maybe that was his tent. So very likely she was taken there at some point.
Do we know if they found anything? Like, has that been released, or is it at the wraps what the result of the search was?
It's almost impossible to say if they found anything, but what I can tell you is they had the most amazing ground search radar that goes underneath the ground. They can go down 15 feet, can find bones, can find metal. And they brought this in, they've never used it before. They very much pinpointed these specific locations. And what I can tell you is that they said they were going to search for 3 days, possibly a 4th. But halfway through the 3rd day, they wrapped up quite early, 3:30 or 4 o'clock. And there were some remarkable pictures, I think, taken by Reuters, or quite a number of the photographers, showing the police in a circle, clapping each other, smiling. And then one of the German detectives comes out with a crate of beer that he hands to everyone, and they are clearly looking like they're celebrating something. Now, I'm, you know, just looking at that body language, you know, and the optics there, you think they probably got something of interest, right?
So what do you think, in your best speculative guess, what might it be?
I mean, it's horrible to say this as a journalist, you know, but the truth is that you hope they found her body. You found her bones, you know. I think they've already said that it's a murder inquiry. They've said that from the beginning, the German police have, and I think the McCanns themselves have accepted that she's almost certainly moved on. It would be wonderful. And apparently, this is an amazing thing now. I didn't know this, but the DNA, a tiny, tiny fragment of bone, okay, or a tiny little bit of tooth is now enough to trace the DNA to someone. It's amazing. It really is quite incredible how, you know, the appliance of science now and how things have moved on. And, you know, these cold cases can now be solved sort of 40, 50 years later.
So when do you think we'll hear more about this? What's going to happen?
Well, I think publicly they will probably, I mean, for example, in the Irade lake search 2 years ago, you may remember they were there 2 years ago, and there was over 100 Portuguese police and Germans searching in a lake and around the lake area where Christian had an area that he camped out in. They took soil samples. They were specifically looking for her pyjamas. They thought they might have some materials for her. They got some samples of materials on the lake. They took them back to Germany. They spent weeks and weeks and weeks analysing these materials to try and they just could not get any DNA off them. So they couldn't say that they were her pyjamas. But they could say with certainty they came from the spot that Christian spent a lot of time at. This time, I'm going to say, and given they didn't even announce that they haven't found anything, but I can tell you they haven't, I don't think they may not announce it at all, but I hopefully will get a steer from one of my contacts, probably, ideally within the next couple of weeks.
But if they have found the remains of Maddeleine McCann, they have to announce that, right? You can't hold that a secret.
I think you're right. I think they would have to renounce it very quickly, but of course they'd have to tell the family first, and they'd probably want to tell the British police first, and they wouldn't be 100% certain they have, right?
You wouldn't want to make a mistake on that one.
Yeah.
But there's a detective in South Africa who was actually there, almost like, in fact, he was there 6 weeks after she went missing, and he has a device now patented in 27 countries where he took a hair from the hairbrush of Maddeleine McCann and could point it, and via quantum physics could pinpoint this exact area where Maddie was, and over 4 days and 4 nights, 8 readings pointed to this exact area where Christian Bruckner had his house, his rental house, and also, coincidentally, Clement Freud, who we now know to be a very dangerous paedophile, also lived. And so this is almost the exact area where the police were searching. And, so that gives me hope that maybe they finally got something.
Or they might find other horrors that, if you have so many pedophiles in one place, who knows what you're going to find.
Well, actually, coincidentally, quite remarkably, there was a report I found. It's a very long story. I won't go and bore you with the details, but I found a story from 1994 online that was not proved, but announced that there were over 4,000 child victims of paedophilia in Portugal per million people. That compared to 1,000 in the UK and 900 in France. In other words, 4 times the number of children were being abused in Portugal than there were in France or England.
And why is that? Is it less tight less tight control, or?
I think so many different reasons. I think partly it goes back hundreds of years. In fact, I've written a book on it. If you actually want to dig into it, you can read my book, My Search for Maddeleine, which is about to come out again. But it also very lapsed policing, also a lack of kind of understanding that it's a serious crime, and also the very fact that, do you find this about Spanish sometimes? There's that kind of shrug your shoulders and go, oh, I'm not worried about it, just turn the other way, not get angry.
Yeah.
Do you ever come across that here?
Well, I think we've done a lot of stories and spoken to a lot of families of British people who went missing in Spain and died or turned up later on, but the police weren't interested. And you can't say for certain, but again, it seems to be a theme. I think certainly there's one story we've done in Benidorm recently where the British man went on a stag party, was found dead, and I think the police assumed he was just another drunk Brit and he fell off a cliff and died because he was drunk. But the family had to go there in person, play detective themselves, and they got the CCTV. And the police closed the case, and they managed to get the police in the last couple of months to reopen it. They said, look, here's video of him sober walking along, and they think he was picked up by taxi drivers or someone taking him home, and they took him, robbed him, pushed him off a cliff.
I mean, that family, brilliant that they came and did that. And I would say that to anybody, if you go, not just in Spain, but also in Portugal, if you've had seen or you heard a crime has happened to anyone, your loved ones, anyone in your family, do go back and do some research. I mean, get in touch with journalists, because after all, that's our job, right? To try and piece these things together as best we can.
Yeah, reminds me of the Netflix show White Lines. Have you seen it? Yeah.
What's it about?
Well, it's about someone whose brother dies.
Guess what it's about?
In Ibiza.
Yeah.
In the 90s, and then she goes back there years later to sort of find out why. So that kind of reminds me of that. So
I really liked it, and it's filmed weirdly in Mallorca, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah,
I didn't realise that.
Because I think it was felt too sensitive to do it in Ibiza, but it's actually really good. Yeah, it's really, really watchable.
Really.
Are they making a second series of it?
I don't know. I hope so. Yeah, it's good. But yeah, so talking of investigating crimes, I saw something else in the paper this week. It just made me think that is so dark. I really hope the police are investigating this one. This is your story about Twisted Game, which was an escape room gone wrong.
I missed this one. I've been away, and I was all away last week, so I hope you know about this, Walt.
Essentially, from what I can understand, there was an escape room kind of game in Granada where somebody ended up getting doused in petrol and set fire to.
What?
So, yeah. So tell us what you know about this, Walt.
So this one, it's a lovely story, is a small town in Granada, near Granada. What was it called? Cajar. And this escape room was billed as a extreme escape room. Okay. So, escape room, but just a bit more extreme. And the advice was, wear clothes you don't mind getting messed up because you might get dirty. And this escape room we looked it up, it has a 4.98 out of 5 review on TripAdvisor. People love this place. Apparently it's very scary. It's not for the faint of heart. You have to be quite sturdy. But for one female contestant, she found herself grabbed by a load of guys who would be actors working for the escape room, not random dodgy guys. That's what she thought. And then they slapped her on a chair, tied her up, and then they started dousing her in like a clear, transparent liquid. And obviously you'd think, well, this is kind of terrifying, but it's all a game, so it's not terrifying. But the woman
It's
also...
terrifying to me, just hearing it.
Yeah, but the woman also thought, well, it's such a fun game, so I'm really scared, but like in a roller coaster, I'm not actually going to die.
Yeah.
But then she thought, like, this sort of petrol really does smell a lot like petrol. And then one of the guys lit a match, and then she's like, well, that looks a lot like a real flame. And then she started to feel maybe something's gone wrong here. And then the person put the flame to her, and it was petrol, and she caught on fire. And then she was on fire for seconds rather than, someone rushed in with a fire extinguisher, put her out. And then everyone was apparently very apologetic, and they didn't know how this happened. This was in 2022. And the trial is going ahead this year in October.
Is this a setup? I mean, were they trying to kill her or something? I mean...
This is unknown, and
it doesn't make sense, does it? You have a panic room or escape room, and then you actually put petrol over someone and light them.
So yeah, was it something genuinely sick and twisted, like a snuff movie, or was it a game that went wrong? Like it's hard to say, but the like I say, the escape room has good reviews. It's been around for many years, and they did post something on Facebook saying, "Oh God, we're really sorry. We hope the woman is fine.
Is this like an apology?
Yeah, we've cooperated with police." And but 3 people are going to trial.
But so did someone just put the fire out then?
Yeah, so someone rushed in with an extinguisher. So that person obviously was prepared to do it. So maybe it was for part of the plan. They just thought that's as far as they could push it.
Actually, thinking about it, imagine if there's a split second when you light someone and you had the fire extinguisher right there, could you not put them out like straight away?
Maybe that was what happened. That was the game. But she did get some burns, but like it wasn't death or near death. It was short 3rd-degree burns.
It's sort of Squid Game, though, right?
Yeah. Well, rather you than me going to check that one out. So, talking of accidents and things that can happen, I did notice in your newsletter a story about a man that had rabies in Spain. He'd been to Ethiopia, and unfortunately, he died of rabies. So.
This is
this one?
First. He was a Spanish tourist in Ethiopia, bitten by a dog, didn't know it had rabies, I think, from what I understand, and didn't get checked out. Went back to Valencia, where he's from, and turned out he had rabies. So he's the first person in Spain to have, or at least to die from rabies in 6 or 7 years. Yeah, he died, because once you get the symptoms, if you don't catch it straight away, I believe if you get it straight away, the doctors can cure it, like snake venom or something. But if you miss that and then the symptoms start coming out, you're a goner.
Really?
Did he have travel insurance, do you know?
We don't know, but he was a long time in hospital in Valencia.
I mean, you guys, do you cover Stayshore covers travel
insurance? Yeah, travel insurance, for expats.
This would be good for Stayshore.
So, it's very important, because who knows, if you go abroad and you're not covered, and then you have to have medical treatment or you have to be flown back, so you always need to get travel insurance.
John, have you had any near disasters or mishaps on holiday?
God, it's too many to name. I can actually twice near-death experiences saved by Germans. It's really hard to say
irony.
That. But yeah, both times saved by Germans. Once walking in the mountains in Morocco in the middle of August, which I don't recommend anyone does, by the way. If you think it's hot here, go down to the High Atlas. And then another time on a boat off Thailand on a what's called a Hobie cat, and which capsized, and I had no clue how to. So yeah, and I didn't have travel insurance, by the way. And I kind of want to ask that. I mean, have you had these kind of experiences ever? Have you had similar things?
I remember I was in Indonesia traveling around, and I had 3 months of travel insurance, but I was traveling for longer than 3 months, so it ran out on the 1st of March. I was thinking, should I renew it? I was like, well, I haven't had any problems so far. So you probably don't need
What happened on the 2nd?
Then I went in like a jungle trek in Sumatra area, and I'm following the guide, and the guide, like a ninja through the jungle, and we're on like a very steep slope, and suddenly my foot, so everything's dead leaves, and the ground just starts to give way under me, and so I'm going down, and then I'm going down a hill, so I'm trying to grab stuff, and there's nothing to grab, everything's loose. And my first thought was, oh no, I should have renewed my travel insurance. Because literally, once you break a leg...
Were you okay?
Yeah, I rolled down like a meter and it's fine. But I did have the
meter.
no, maybe 5. But I had that moment of thinking like this. Oh, if I break a leg now, or even worse.
And how much is this? Because you know what, I always think I should get it. I mean, do you have like family packages?
The thing is, everyone's price is different because it's based on their risk. So
I take no risks.
I
go nowhere. Not
based
now,
on
not these days.
your medical history, age, any pre-existing conditions. But I mean, it can be very reasonable, from a very low price. So,
like what's a low price?
Well, it's hard to quote you, but a single trip, could be. I think the lowest is about €13 or something like that. So it's not bad.
A whole year round sort of thing if you want to.
A whole year, I don't know the prices for a whole year because it's based on everyone's individual risk. But
a couple of hundred perhaps, no?
Well, for example, I have Stayshore travel insurance, and for my level of risk, I was quoted about 70, I think, for the whole year, which is great.
That's actually really good.
Yeah, for a year, that's not bad. Yeah. Is it just medical coverage, or is it like if your flight is missed or
No,
cancelled?
it's different things as well, cancellation, baggage, and there's different options.
A missed flight is probably the most likely thing that's going to happen to you. It depends on your age.
Do you tick that box and you pay the extra €4 on Ryanair or EasyJet?
No, I'm flying 1 hour to the UK, I don't bother.
I don't do it. I know who does. I mean, it's a great add-on for them.
I actually had a missed flight once when it was the Kalima, the dust, and it was really weird because I ended up having to stay in Torremolinos in a hotel from Malaga Airport in a bus. Yeah, but I was there for quite a long time and thinking, what am I doing? I could just go home, like half an hour away. But anyway, so...
You were having good fun in Torremolinos. You could have a great night out in Torremolinos.
Yeah, I did it on purpose, actually. Yeah.
Was it gay pride?
No, it wasn't. It was just... a normal day in Torremolinos.
The royal family. I think it's quite nice that the Spanish royals send their kids to school
Wales.
in England, don't you? To the UK. Can I say England? It's Wales.
Wales, yeah.
United Kingdom, but it's called isn't it called the hippie Hogwarts or something?
Yeah.
And
Hogwarts for hippies in Wales.
And they've both been there. They're both the princesses, and I think it's a good sign that the Spanish and the English. I think there are loads of good positive links between the two countries. I think this is a really good example.
It's a great advert for the UK education system, that they choose of all the places in the whole world, they choose the UK.
Do you know what she studied?
No.
Probably etiquette.
Maybe. But if it's a hippie Hogwarts, I don't know.
Maybe rolling spliffs. It's out in the middle of the mountains in Wales somewhere.
In Wales.
The Princess of Spain is rolling spliffs.
Well, I hope she was having some fun out in the middle of Wales. What else do you do there?
So I guess on that note, we've covered a lot today. Really interesting. I can't wait to see what transpires with the Maddeleine McCann story and with the gang story. So you'll have to keep us posted.
Yeah, we will.
We will. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you. Cheers, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.